This is my friend Shin.
こんにちは。
We met while I was living in Tokyo and he helped me out a lot. We would hang out a lot, go eat, go get milk tea, and he would take me to a lot of new places that I've never been before. He even helped me open my mailbox because I'm an idiot and I forgot the passcode. Hanging out with Shin a lot also helped me practice my Japanese. Mainly because he didn't speak any English, but I was always grateful for the extra help and the practice and company. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to make friends with Japanese people.
MATOKA が参ります。ご注意ください。
Hey friends, what's good? So recently I was browsing YouTube like everyone else and I stumbled upon Shun-chan's channel. Shun-chan recently reached 100,000 subscribers and he was getting questions to do a future Q&A on his community tab. So I decided to just kind of check it out and see what people were asking him, and I found that there were a lot of people asking about how to make Japanese friends. And I was like, damn, this hits really close to home because I did kind of have a little bit of a problem making friends when I first was in Japan. I really didn't know anyone when I first went, so I was pretty much out there all by myself. And I feel like it's really hard to make friends or just like be outgoing in the very beginning, but you know, through basically desperation and just wanting to hang out with people, I was able to eventually find a good group of people. And so I wanted to make a video kind of about this. I also think because I am half Japanese but also come from a Western background, so I got that Westerner mindset more so than a Japanese mindset, and because I didn't know very much if any Japanese when I first moved to Japan, I think I'm a pretty good source of information on how to meet Japanese people and kind of like just sharing the process that I went through. So the first thing that I recommend if you want to make friends with Japanese people is to be or live in Japan. And I know this is already kind of a stretch. If you're watching this video and you're not in Japan right now, then you probably can't get into Japan. Simply put, you know, because of the pandemic and travel restrictions and stuff like that, it's hard to get to Japan right now. So I assume this information or what I'm saying here is probably going to be useful in the future, not necessarily right now. There are other ways to meet Japanese people. You can always go on language applications, you can game and hopefully get some Japanese people in your lobby if you're on the same servers. But for me personally, if I'm making friends with someone, I really want to meet them in person and just kind of like talk and chat and hang out and do things. It is also an option to meet Japanese people outside of Japan. You'll probably be able to make friends with them a little easier because they might have a little more of a Western mindset if they've been living somewhere else compared to in Japan for a while. But that's also kind of just hard to find people who are Japanese and not living in Japan. The next thing that really helps is to speak Japanese.
日本語喋れますか?
And I know this is like, well shit, like it's over for me. You might be thinking that right now, but that's not necessarily the case. When I first moved to Japan, my Japanese was absolute crap. Pretty much non-existent, but I could understand a little bit just because of anime and watching Japanese content in the past. I would say besides like my comprehension, everything else was really just like beginner level or even less because I didn't just have any exposure to it when I was living in the States. Now, I'm not saying you need to have proficient Japanese in order to make Japanese friends. You don't need like to get JLPT N1 or anything like that. Of course, the more Japanese you know always helps because you can have deeper conversations and you can talk about a more variety of things. But as long as you know like a little bit of vocabulary and can hold a little bit of a conversation, that's more than enough. Like if you think about the conversations that you have in your native language with your friends, like you're not talking about politics, you're not talking about the new scientific discoveries or anything like that. Like you're just talking about your hobbies and your day and what's been going on and that kind of stuff. And that's all that you really need to know in Japanese as well. Next, you need to know how to make friends normally. And that can actually be a little bit of a difficult thing because I feel like there are certain places where it's really easy to make friends, and then there are other places or just like periods in your life where it's not so easy. Something that I notice for Japanese people a lot is they make a lot of their friends when they're in school, and then they kind of keep in that social group for a long period of time, and it is a little harder to reach out of that social group and meet new people. You just need to make a little more of an effort, and I think that's kind of universal everywhere. Like for me, I made most of my friends in high school and college, and then after that, it wasn't really until I made a big effort in Japan to meet a lot of new people, then I started expanding my social group again. But in the interim between that, like I just was working, but I wasn't really making an effort or wanted to kind of get out there and do a lot of things in order to meet new people. Like it's kind of hard once you get settled in. So mindset, first of all, is a pretty big thing. And I think especially if you don't have school, if you're not meeting people in classes or through study groups or anything like that, you really need to meet people through other avenues. So aside from classes and school, I felt that doing activities in larger groups in order to meet people really helped me branch out. So playing sports or attending groups that are around a certain hobby really helped to expand my circle. One thing that I used a lot when I was in Japan is this app called Meetup. If you don't know, I'm super into badminton, and I wanted to find a badminton club or just people who are playing badminton, and I was able to meet a club through the app Meetup, and it was comprised of a mix between Japanese people and non-Japanese people living in Japan. From that, I was exposed to a lot of other groups, some groups mainly more Japanese people, some groups more foreigner based, and was able to just meet a lot of people through that instead. So I highly recommend kind of just like getting into a group and kind of feeling it out after that. I think that's a really good option in order to meet Japanese people as well as non-Japanese people, and Japanese people are super into sports as well. Another thing you might want to look for is finding Japanese people who have an interest in English or studying abroad, or have an interest in your native language as well. I think people who have an interest more in studying abroad or in a specific language or something like that, they're gonna be more open to meeting people that can help them practice that language or help them get a little more exposure to the language as well. And of course, because Japan is comprised of basically mainly Japanese people, it can be a little hard for Japanese people to find language practice partners in other languages because a lot of them only speak Japanese. Another thing you want to think about is making sure that you put yourself out there. I know it's kind of a hard thing to do, especially if you're kind of shy or you're a little introverted or you're just not confident in Japanese or don't want to embarrass yourself. But I think there's a point where you just kind of don't care anymore. For me personally, I got to the point where I didn't care. I just wanted a lot of new experiences, so I just started trying to meet people in any way possible, putting myself out there. It can be weird and embarrassing at first, but I think it is worth it in the end. And finally, please don't be too weeby. While there are a lot of Japanese people who like anime and manga and hang out in Akihabara a lot, that doesn't mean that every Japanese person is like that. And it's so cringe to like see videos where people are meeting Japanese people or talking to them and they're like, hey, have you heard of Naruto? So cool. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kakkoi desho. And I'm kind of like,
no, I don't want to hear that.
Like, it's fine to talk about anime, but I don't think that should be like your opening line in order to like engage someone. Because I don't know if it's a personal thing, but it just sounds very cringe to me. And if I was a Japanese person on the receiving end of that, I would just be like... Personally, from my experience, all of these things more or less apply to me being able to find Japanese friends. I think especially if you're in Tokyo, it can be a little daunting and kind of hard to find people to hang out with or find people that are like-minded because it seems like it's a very individualistic society there. People are very nice and will help you out if you need it, but it's also kind of a keep to yourself kind of vibe if you're just walking around on the streets too. But it's important to just try and go above and beyond that in order to meet people, and you eventually will meet really nice people who want to be your friend. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions or anything you want to know about meeting and making friends with Japanese people. If you like videos like this, make sure to give it a thumbs up and also make sure to subscribe if you haven't. I've been appreciating the support on the channel. We've slowly been getting closer and closer to our next goal. Yeah, let's go fam. And let me know if you want me to do a follow-up on this topic or other kind of videos about Japan or anime or literally anything that you're interested in. And I'll see you next time. Peace.